Welcome back to Grandview Debates. Today we have two students debating the issue about phone usage in the classroom. Let's start by looking at the format of the debate. There are two segments, each with 2 minutes for each debater, and then a 4-minute unstructured segment at the end. Now, let's meet the debaters.
Hi, I'm Kabir. I'm a junior, and today I'm saying that we need to allow cell phones in the classroom.
Hi, I'm Nora, and I'm arguing that we should ban smartphones in the classroom.
Let's kick it off with Kabir.
Grandview High School, we need cell phones in the classroom. The basis of my argument is the impacts of the past, the benefits of the class now, and how it'll help us in the future. Starting off, let's look at the Harvard Gazette, where Victor Pereira, a lecturer on education and co-chair of the Teaching and Teaching Leadership Program at the Graduate School of Education, tells us, returning back to in-person, I think it's hard to break the habit. The habit he references here is being able to use your phone throughout the day. The pandemic allowed everyone a lot more freedom at home, and we've become dependent on that freedom. Taking phones in the classroom now is just not a feasible option. We rely on them too much. Now, let's look at how these phones can actually help us prosper within the classroom. The graduate program for editors tells us that cell phone use includes accelerated learning, access to digital content, and a communication tool to parents for student safety. Essentially, these phones are helping us grow in the classrooms. As students in this school, we all know that when we sit in a classroom with a teacher-to-student ratio of 1 to 30, our teachers can't always help us immediately. That's where your phone comes in. We can turn to our phones to help substitute for the lack of available attention. The alternative is essentially helping everyone. And now the final portion of my argument is that in the future, we're going to see more benefits. Currently, we see that 66% of American employees use cell phones multiple times a day at work. In fact, 87% of companies adopt policies integrating your personal device in the workplace. That's according to Addo Time. Our students are going to grow up and join the workforce. It's a school's job to prepare you for the industry. And if the workforce is using their technology on a daily basis, then our students need to learn this skill in the classroom right now. Harvard Gazette's Mesfin Awok-Bikalu, a research scientist in the Lee Kum-Shung Center for Health and Happiness at the Chan School, supports the argument when she argues that more flexible classroom policies can create opportunities for teaching tech literacy and self-regulation. We can prepare our kids for the future right now. Taking cell phones away in the classroom is not achieving the goal of our learning.
Thanks, Kabir. Now let's hear what Nora has to say.
Our parents were right. It is the dang phones. For too long, American education has been criticized for what leaves the classroom. But the real issue is what we carry in our hands walking in. Students in America aren't learning well enough. However, banning smartphones in the schools fosters safer and smarter students. First, it protects students from developing poor mental health while at school. Research linking smartphone use and poor mental health outcomes isn't new to us. But what is the unique threat it poses to our generation. The National Institute for Health and Care Research explains that high school students who reported having problematic smartphone use were 2 times more likely to develop anxiety and 3 times more likely to develop depression. But let's look at schools specifically. A study by Harvard University explains that banning phones in high schools significantly decreased mental health challenges by more than 40%. What this means is that even if students go home to use their phones like they did in pandemic times, a school screen time ban mitigates almost half of mental health challenges. And second, it prevents students from losing educational opportunities. Unless students who can take pictures of PowerPoints have uniquely higher grades than students who don't, there's no correlation between smartphone use and better learning. In fact, it's the exact opposite. A study from Rutgers University explains that having a device lowered test scores in the final exam by at least half a letter grade. This proves that the main effect of divided attention in the classroom is on long-term retention. This long-term memory is the difference between passing or failing a class, pursuing or ending your educational goals. The study furthers that it can take up to 20 minutes for a student to refocus on learning once distracted on a phone. This is the most important factor in today's debate, because schools in Colorado and across our country are literally shutting down next year and fighting to prove that each minute in classrooms is a minute education is worth it. Kabir, you and I live 30 minutes away from 7 Denver public schools that are literally shutting down next year and live in a nation with a president who plans to dismantle the Department of Education altogether. Walking in and out of today's debate, if smartphone use is preventing students from doing their best, and more importantly, being their best, we as a nation need to do better.
The free-for-all segment starts now.
Okay, Nora, so you talk about how cell phones in the classroom lead to distractions, but I give you about how cell phones are used in a daily work life, so shouldn't we prepare our students to be able to deal with those distractions?
No, I disregard the premise of your question. I don't think that cell phones should be used more in workplaces. Think about it this way. Would you want your future lawyers, doctors, and teachers to be actively distracted on their phones while they're working? I think the answer is no. Instead of promoting cell phone use, we should be discouraging it and making sure that students are focused both in the classroom and in the workplace moving forward.
I think you misunderstand the issue because, like I said in my speech, 66% of American employees are already using their phones during work time, and 87% of companies are adopting policies to integrate your cell phone into your work schedule. So we're seeing that, like, regardless of how the schools pan out, cell phones are used in the workforce. So shouldn't our students be prepared for that?
Absolutely. So what you said answers your question, and it's that these companies are adopting policies where workers can use their phones towards what they're working on, right? We don't have that in schools. That's the difference. Companies.
Well, we do have them in schools right now. You're allowed to use your phone in school.
Right, but they're not, phones aren't specifically used towards educational purposes. That's the difference. You're allowed to use their phones, and that's why you and I both get distracted in AP stats every morning.
Yeah, you get less connection on social media, and that's great. I agree, social media can be overbearing sometimes.
Right.
But take like when students are trying to get in contact with parents. I know a lot of people like to check in with their parents every hour or something. If you take away phones from them, then they feel disconnected from their parents, and that can lead to a lot of safety issues now.
I don't think so. I mean, I agree that everyone wants to be connected to their parents, but even in emergency situations, right? Like in lockdowns, students are told not to be on their phones. And
But that's for a whole separate issue. It's not they don't want us to be connected to our parents. It's that they need to prioritize the bandwidth for other emergency communication services.
It's the fact that phones are a distraction. In the classroom, phones make noises, right?
Yeah.
And that's why during lockdowns they tell you to power off or don't reach your phone at all. It's because they make noises, and that's a threat. It has nothing to do with bandwidth.
Yeah, it does, because they are trying to make sure that teachers and people who need to contact emergency services are able to do so quickly and efficiently,
even
without students using up that data to communicate with
Exactly.
parents.
So you're agreeing with me in that students are using this data, and that poses a threat in emergency situations. You agree?
Yeah, in emergency situations, and you have different regulations during those emergency situations. But during a normal school day and a normal period, there shouldn't be these stipulations.
Right, but these normal periods are when students should be using every minute of their time learning. That's the premise of my argument. It's that if students aren't using every minute of their time learning, that's time wasted, and that's time that our education as a whole is losing.
Okay, so I love this point that you're bringing up, that we need to use all the time we can. I brought up the teacher to student ratio, and how students are getting not left behind per se, but they're not getting the attention they need in that very moment, and how phones can replicate that. What do you have to say about that?
Right. I don't think that phones will ever be able to replace students. I think there's a clear distinction between the two, and we have to respect that moving forward by banning smartphones.
Okay, cool. I appreciate it, Nora.
I appreciate it too, Kabir.
Thanks for watching, and we hope you enjoyed this debate. Scan this QR code to let us know who you thought won the debate and to suggest future debate ideas. See you next time. This is Valet and Josh signing off for GVTV.
All right, good debate, Nora.
Good debate, Kabir.